Two topics to discuss tonight. First, Donald Trump has showcased more instances of his derangement today as his frustration over Iran spirals out of control. He's picked a fight with the Zionist German Chancellor after the genocide-loving European politician said that Iran had humiliated America. He then posted a map of the Strait of Hormuz, calling it the State of Trump. And this came on a day Americans were hit by the highest retail prices for petrol and diesel since 2022. Then in the UK, Israeli assets in politics and the media have moved swiftly to amplify the incident of yesterday's stabbing in London to make it look like a national calamity. Why? Because the victims of the stabbings were two Jewish persons. This will be the broad focus of my video today. Also in this video, a hilarious but chilling message to Donald Trump from the creators of the Lego series on the occasion of Persian Gulf Day. So please stay tuned. So the deranged occupant of the White House today once again proved us right as he exhibited his skills at being an impeccable clown. He first decided to have a go at the Gaza Holocaust-loving German Chancellor Friedrich Merz because this Israeli poodle recently said that Iran had effectively humiliated the US. I had made a video on this yesterday. You can watch it here. Hurt by this conclusion, Trump today threatened to withdraw his troops from Germany.
Threatening to pull U.S. troops out of Germany as NATO nations continue to fall short on helping Iran.
Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader is making new threats against the U.S. and our allies.
Our senior White House correspondent, Jackie Heinrich, joins us now with the latest. Hey, Jackie.
Good morning, guys. More than 1/5 of U.S. active duty troops overseas are based in Germany, about 35,000. And now President Trump is threatening a drawdown after German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said Iran is, quote, humiliating the United States. President Trump posted this. The United States is studying and reviewing the possible reduction of troops in Germany with a determination to be made over the next short period of time. Thank you for your attention to this matter. His frustration bubbled over after Merz spoke to a group of German students.
Keine Strategie.
The Americans clearly have no strategy. An entire nation is being humiliated by the Iranian state leadership, especially by these so-called revolutionary guards.
President Trump posted Tuesday, the Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. He doesn't know what he's talking about. If Iran had a nuclear weapon, the whole world would be held hostage. I am doing something with Iran right now that other nations or presidents should have done long ago. No wonder Germany is doing so poorly, both economically and otherwise. Now the Chancellor is trying to smooth things over, saying he still has a good relationship with President Trump, and he's expressed his doubts about the war since the beginning.
But this Israeli lapdog didn't stop here. Hours later, he wrote this on Truth Social, and I quote, "The Chancellor of Germany should spend more time on ending the war with Russia, Ukraine, where he has been totally ineffective, and fixing his broken country, especially immigration and energy, and less time on interfering with those that are getting rid of the Iran nuclear threat, thereby making the world, including Germany, a safer place. President DJT." End quote. Look, we have no sympathy for either of these two Israeli poodles. Germany's Zionist leader was celebrating the illegal attack on Iran only a month and a half ago by the US and Israeli terrorists. Last year, he had gleefully said that Israel was doing Europe's dirty work when war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu illegally attacked Iran. But as soon as the Iranian retaliation choked the supply of oil, gas, and fertilizers for Europeans, the same Merz chap changed his tune as he began to attack the US. For any decent human, both Trump and Merz are two sides of the same coin. As for Trump, he took his derangement to a new level when he shared a map of the Strait of Hormuz, declaring this crucial waterway the Strait of Trump. This evoked an angry response from the Iranian Foreign Minister, Syed Abbas Araghchi, who wrote on Twitter, and I quote, "Today is Persian Gulf Day in Iran, marking our ancestors' expulsion of the Portuguese from the Strait of Hormuz 400 years ago. POTUS uses the correct term Persian Gulf, not the Pentagon's fake version. But calling Hormuz anything else is indeed a terrible mistake. End quote. Arakshi also shared an old clip of Trump calling the Strait of Hormuz the State of Trump.
Open it up. They have to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Excuse me for this. I'm so sorry. Such a terrible mistake.
Both these episodes show the growing frustration of this Israeli slave in the White House. He knows the path of political suicide that his miscalculation on Iran has forced him to embark on. Today, we learned that the retail oil prices in the US had increased to their highest level since 2022.
I think the Iranians feel like they've discovered the U.S. Achilles heel, which is our low tolerance for economic pain. I think as Kareem put it, the Iranian regime is playing for survival, right? Trump, this is a war of choice. He started trying to get regime change. He's now been sort of floundering, looking for some other objective, going from denuclearizing Iran, reopening the Strait. I think it's very clear that the Iranians have sort of the upper hand in terms of who has more endurance in this conflict.
Which is stunning given the military superiority of the United States, but just in terms of their willingness to have their people suffer and to withstand pain, that's what gives them the edge.
Yeah, and by the way, this is a lesson I think that Iran took from what happened last year, right? You look at TACO, Trump imposed tariffs on China. And then China retaliated by cutting off the U.S. access to rare earths. Ford idled one of its factories within 2 weeks, and Trump backed down, right? We've now been backpedaling on our policy toward China because we showed that we aren't willing to take a stock market correction. I think the Iranians saw that. And by the way, other countries have seen that, and they've decided that the best way to fight back against the United States is try to inflict economic pain.
In the UK, an incident of stabbing has turned the country upside down, thanks to the undue influence of the Israeli lobby in politics and media. Look, any incident of stabbing or violence is appalling and can never be condoned by any right-minded person. But the way the entire might of the British political class and the media reacted to this story just shows the importance the UK as a country accords to Jews, who are only 0.5% of the total British population. One stabbing targeting 2 Jews in London's Golders Green, and we are made to feel like there is a national calamity. I have lived near Golders Green for nearly 6 years. This place was never so bad. Today, it's a no-go area for non-Jews. Israeli poodle Keir Starmer, who is married to a Jewish woman, rushed to the scene of the incident. So did the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch. These morons were quick to declare it a terrorist incident, despite Metropolitan Police Chief Mark Rowley revealing that the attacker had suffered from mental health issues in the past.
The 45-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder and remains in custody following a checkup at the local hospital. He has a history of serious violence and mental health issues.
Now imagine if the victims were Muslims or blacks or of any other faiths, and the attacker was a Jew with a history of mental health issues. Would we still be so hysterical? Starmer, who thankfully may not remain the Prime Minister of this country for too long after next week's local body elections, had this to say.
Antisemitism is an old hatred. History shows that the roots are deep. And if you turn away, it grows back. Yet far too many people in this country diminish it. They either don't see it or they don't want to see it. Take the marches that happen regularly across Britain. Of course, we protect freedom of speech and peaceful protest in this country. But if you are marching with people wearing pictures of paragliders without calling it out, you are venerating the murder of Jews. If you stand alongside people who say globalize the Intifada, you are calling for terrorism against Jews. And people who use that phrase should be prosecuted.
While Starmer is busy using this incident of stabbing to vilify peaceful protesters raising their voice against the Gaza genocide, his Muslim Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has moved swiftly to bring in new legislation, one more new legislation, to protect a certain entitled group of people. Did Starmer meet any other stabbing victims in London or elsewhere in the UK? The Home Office's own data shows that hate crimes against Muslims are the worst in the country. And yet, you never see hysteria gripping the Israeli-controlled media or the political class in the UK over those incidents. And when people use this to share their frustration over the undue control of the media and politics by the Israeli lobby, they are called anti-Semites.
Look at this absolute drivel from Dan, cheese for brains, glass for heart Hodges. Dan has concluded that the rise in anti-Semitic attacks in Britain are not so much connected to the rogue state in the Middle East that defines itself by its supposed Judaism. It does the thing that it accuses us of doing all the time. It conflates Judaism and Zionism, an ancient religion, with a political ideology barely 150 years old. You know that rogue state that's been just carrying out mass murder, genocide, targeting ambulance workers, just murdering journalists there recently in Lebanon, just, at will, turning off the incubators of babies, letting them to die, Do you know that state? Not so much that state has anything to do with it. Dan has concluded that the people protesting against the actions of that state, the people who are against the genocide, are really responsible for the rise in anti-Semitic attacks. Now, guys, let it just be said on the record, just for the usual kind of nonsense I'll get in the comments. I, like a lot of people in the non-psychopath community, are against anti-Semitic attacks, genuine anti-Semitic attacks. I'm against innocent people being stabbed on the street. That's not my kind of thing at all. But for the mainstream media and the political class in Britain to first of all come out hot and hard every time there's an anti-Semitic attack, and to say little or nothing about the genuine rise in anti-Muslim attacks all around Britain, they have nothing to say about that because it doesn't have the same political expediency, obviously. But the main point being to not connect it at all to the crimes that are being carried out by the only Jewish state, the so-called only Jewish state in the Levant. What kind of intellectual ignorance, how disingenuous would you have to be to continue talking about what are we going to do with this rise in anti-Semitic attacks? Does it condone am I condoning innocent people being targeted on the street? Of course not. Again, I'm not a psychopath. But when are we going to wake up and say the only Jewish state murdering children, targeting ambulance workers, murdering journalists, stealing land, explicitly saying they want greater Israel from both sides of the house? It's not just Netanyahu. The whole population has become genocidal. And you're not going to in any way say that might be playing some small role in the rise in anti-Semitic attacks. Will you please stop insulting our intelligence? Let's have an honest discussion. Instead of curbing the fucking hate marches, maybe you should curb the activities of this out-of-control, genocidal, psychopathic state that does everything in the name of Judaism.
There was another fascinating encounter with academic Ashok Kumar and a man called Stephen Pollard, formerly with the Jewish Chronicle. You have to listen to this brilliant piece of audio on BBC.
A part of the problem of conflating Judaism with the state of Israel, people are critical not only of the state of Israel, but our own government's complicity, arming the genocide. And that was why people came out to the demonstrations. People have to have an outlet to demonstrate against the brutality of the Israeli state and our government's own hand in that. And to take that freedom away based on spurious claims is not only problematic, but escalates the problem. There has to be an outlet in which people are able to protest. If you take away that outlet, then how do people actually even resist what our government's doing?
Stephen, is that your particular focus, that language, that statement about globalizing the intifada? Or does it go beyond? I mean, what are the others that you hear or are concerned about?
Well, there's all kinds of chants. I mean, there's from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which effectively means pushing Israelis out of existence. pushing Jews out of existence. That's what it can only mean. But it's also, I mean, as Jonathan Hall was
Stephen,
talking about,
as you know, that even that phrase is controversial, and Benjamin Netanyahu has used it. I'm trying in my mind to make a link.
Can I finish? You asked me a question.
I know, but I'm trying to make I've only got 8 minutes.
You asked me if there were more.
I'm trying to make a link between the phrases.
I've barely been able to mention one.
I'm trying to make a link between the phrases and the rise of anti-Semitic hate attacks on the British community. Sorry.
Yes, and I'm trying to explain it.
Stephen, I'm just asking a question. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what I would like to say, many of the symbols Jonathan Hall talked about, the talk about Jewish control of the media, the talk about Jewish control of government, all those kinds of posters, which you see on those marches every week, they all feed into what's now becoming known as ambient anti-Semitism, where the atmosphere is that Jews are the problem and that Jews are causing problems for the West, for Britain, and so on. And of course, that's going to lead to the kinds of things that we saw yesterday in Golders Green.
Ambient anti-Semitism. And if you hear phrases, Ashok, like, as we heard earlier, Zionist control Britain being mentioned in these kinds of marches as well, does this create an atmosphere that is very threatening to the Jewish community and could lead some people, not least the man who took a knife into his hands yesterday, to engage in violence?
When the government then bans Palestine Action, which now the courts have found illegal, then bans marches, bans free speech, criminalizes speech, when they do that, what that does is fuel anti-Semitism. That's what it does. It fuels the conspiracy that this is the case. And then when earlier your speaker said that, he kept conflating Israelis and the IDF and Jews, that's the problem. People can criticize the IDF, an army that is committing a genocide, and then you say, no, that's an attack on Jews. That's the conflation. That's the problem. That's anti-Semitism, actually. To say that Jewish people are responsible for the barbarism of the Israeli state. It's no different than saying Muslims are responsible for the barbarism of ISIS.
Stephen.
Let me tell you what anti-Semitism is. Anti-Semitism is walking through the streets of a largely Jewish neighborhood with a knife and seeking to kill as many Jews as you can. That's anti-Semitism.
Ashok?
You've got no response to that, have you? Because it's so patently true.
No, of course it is. I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is also what's anti-Semitic is conflate. Do you think it's anti-Semitic to conflate the actions of the Israeli state with all Jews, Stephen?
But would you, let's put it this way.
No, but you haven't answered my question. I answered your question. Stephen, answer my question.
Yes, of course.
You think that's anti-Semitic?
The Israeli state has nothing to do with me. I'm a British citizen.
No, I
happen to support.
Well, I had nothing to do with what happened yesterday.
Israel.
But you asked me a question and I
you
answered it.
But Stephen, he's not saying that. He's asking if you think the conflation in itself is anti-Semitic.
No, I don't, actually. I don't think that conflation is
to think of all Jews
because most
as
Jews,
equivalent to the Israeli state.
They're not equivalent to the Israeli state, but most Jews have an emotional and historic link to Israel. They support Israel. They don't support necessarily the views and the actions of the Israeli government. But the idea that it's anti-Semitic to suggest that Jews have an emotional connection to Israel is ridiculous. Of course.
Sorry, I have to disagree with Stephen here. I don't think Jews are responsible for the actions of the Israeli state. I just don't.
And I'm not saying they are.
Making them responsible is the problem. I think that is part of the problem.
He's not saying that either, Ashok. He's saying that they have a natural affinity with the state of Israel.
I don't think anyone has a natural. I don't believe there's some essential character to a people. I don't think that Muslims have a natural affinity towards ISIS. I don't think Jews have a natural affinity towards Israel. I think the evidence actually shows that younger Jewish people, and there's overwhelming evidence to support this, especially in the Anglo-American world, that they are turning away from the Israeli state and supporting Israel.
This brazen hypocrisy and double standards are what is fueling anti-Semitism in the UK. More and more people, including the white native population here, are getting fed up with the special treatment being accorded to Jews while the pain of other race groups is ignored. More and more Jews need to come forward to call out such thuggery and utter dishonesty. Green Party leader Zach Polanski, who himself is a proud Jew, is one of them. But he too is being hounded by the Zionist media for stating the facts. I will leave you with this short Lego clip from the makers of the Iranian Lego series as they warned Donald Duck about his fate in the Persian Gulf. While releasing this short clip, Explosive Media wrote, and I quote, "From Darius the Great to Mir Mahna, from Delvari to Tangsiri, the Persian Gulf is ours. Happy Persian Gulf Day, April the 30th. End quote. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.